a cross on your back is like very dignified, right? That's like a dignified way to suffer. But this is just that's like a garrow around your neck. It chokes the life out of you, and it distorts your mind too. And it took me a while to forgive them for that. But I had to, because you can't live with that hatred. It kills you.
This is No to Nose Talks to Bros, a series where I talk to ordinary guys about whatever is on their mind. In this episode, we're discussing learning to forgive your parents and also grieving over the loss of a best friend who has transitioned.
All right, cool. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. So I'm not here to argue or anything. I just want to listen to see what you have to say. So we can take the conversation wherever you want. So
all right. I appreciate that. How's your morning going?
it's all right, thanks. Yeah, I've got a few lessons after this and then a few bits of content to do, bit of video editing. It's a different kind of life from when I was teaching in the classroom.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's quite a different change up, actually.
Yeah, trying to get some new skills and learn more about all the tech stuff.
Yeah, it must be nice. So you kind of like your own boss. You can kind of decide what you're going to do today or get it all in.
Yeah, which means you can end up a lot busier than you would have done working for somebody else if you're not careful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd imagine. I can definitely relate to that, actually.
So what do you do for a living?
Well, what I'm trying to do, not really making a living off of it yet, is engraving.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, very specific. It's jewelry engraving. So it has to do with different sort of ornamental patterns in jewelry. Nothing too fancy or complicated right now, but actually there's a lot of people in the UK who do that, especially in London. Signet rings are very popular in London, I've noticed, because I follow a few accounts on Instagram. It's the only social media I have. So they're very popular over there. I don't know why.
It's a traditional thing with a lot of the older, very wealthy families. The signet ring can be like a family heirloom or a mark. So maybe it's something to do with that. More of a custom here than elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. It's gun engraving is over here. I totally understand why. That's obvious. I'm in America. But I don't know why. Signet ring is popular over there. There's a variety of different metal workings that's popular over in Italy. I don't know where gemstone carving is big, though. That's kind of like what I'm interested in getting into. There's a lot of like weird gemstone art coming out, and I don't even know where it's coming from. I've already ruled out Persia. I've ruled out England. I've ruled out France. I don't know where it's coming from, these places that are pumping out this amazing art. It's all traditional. Like it's all classical. So you have like a cameo of Zeus, or you have different cameos of the Muses. That's also a pretty big popular one. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I'll definitely have to get into that at some point.
That sounds good. So what people are doing that from online stores, are they, and just shipping to people all over the world with the engraved gemstones, or is it more local?
It's all over the world because it's so specialized. Not a lot of people do it.
Right.
It's a very weird kind of field. I've asked around for apprenticeships from stem to stern for everything from knife engraving to traditional jewelry kind of stuff, including signet rings, including gemstone work, but I can't seem to actually find a niche in yet, so I just got to take it at my own, I suppose, for now.
Yeah, it sounds like the kind of thing where you need to build your own audience for it and just become known as the gemstone engraving guy somehow.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's engraving's kind of a dying art anyway. Gemstone engraving, in particular, it's I mean, it has been popular since the time of Marcus Aurelius. Yeah, he had his own favorite gemstone engraver. I was looking at a few antiques of his online. It's kind of interesting. He had a gemstone engraver of his own, and I think Pythagoras' father was a gemstone engraver too. So a lot of weird connections in that art.
Well, that sounds an important thing to bring back. There'll be people desperate for it, I'm sure. You just have to keep going away at all the links you can find, and then eventually I think there'll come a point where the opportunity will arise.
Hey man, I'm hoping. I'm definitely hoping. You know, I had to quit my job to pursue this. It's like it's all consuming.
Mm.
It really is. Like I've tried all these different sorts of things. You work full time, you try it on the side, you work part time, you try it on the side. But if things compete for your attention, it's very difficult to put out two fires at once.
Mm.
If there's especially if you're crazy like me, like I'm a nighttime person, so it's 2:30 right now where I am. It's you would think that oh, I can get something in the morning and then later on I'll have the energy to do a nighttime thing. And no, yeah, absolutely not. That'll just ruin your circadian rhythm. So I learned that the hard way.
Mm.
Took me a while to get used to that. That was kind of messed me up for a while because it would be like I would get home and the remote control you have for your car
Mm.
door. I would use that on my apartment door. And I was like, why isn't it working? And then I had to like realize, oh, okay, I'm gonna go take a nap now. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
a little messed up right now.
Can imagine. The other thing I've heard that I've found in my experience as well is that if you have too many projects going on at once and one of them really matters to you, you haven't got the motivation to pursue it properly. Not only can you not put out two fires at once, but there's no real fire under you with that one, because does it really matter if you don't make it work? You've always got
Mhm.
the safety net of the other ones to fall back on. So
Mm.
it's good that you've got this one thing as your main focus, but I think that something like 80% effort over a long period of time, just being consistent, is probably the way you're going to bring it into fruition rather than trying to do it 100% in a burst, because that's likely to lead to burnout, I think. So hold a little bit back and be in it for the
Yeah,
long haul.
yeah, I gotta agree. It's I notice that after I like rest, if I choose it, I'll do it like days in a row for a week, and then I'll choose a day to rest because it's like, okay, let's take a little time off here. I'll come back and there's an improvement. Like I don't even know how. Like my lines will be crisper. I have it right here. That's why I'm looking down. But my lines will be a little bit crisper, or the ratio will be a little bit more correct. It's weird because if I don't take that rest, I'm not going to have that bump.
Mm.
I got to kind of figure out the best way to put that bump in. How many hours, how long a break, when to get back, when that bump happens. It's kind of like a numbers thing to me. I gotta kind of mess around with it. But yeah, it's a very interesting thing. It's very difficult. You talk about engraving. I mean, the $10 bill, Alexander Hamilton, the guy who did that, Steve T. Mnuchin, I learned under a guy who learned under him, because this is a very interconnected world. And I did a little schooling, and he said that with this guy, and he's had mentioned that note, which is made in Intaligo, which basically means in reverse. So all the little marks you see on the bill itself, those are the empty spots. That's where the ink goes. So everything else is cut out. That took about 2,000 hours for him to do. 2,000-hour project. So it's no wonder to me why no one my age is kind of doing that. You're talking about hyper obsessive, make all the lines perfect, 2,000-hour job. And in a lot of cases, you're not even at that high level yet, right? So you're not even going to get a big paycheck. You're not even going to get guaranteed income. So I can understand why the art is so obscure and rare. Totally makes sense to me.
Good for you, though, if there aren't many people doing it, if this is something that you can develop a high level skill in, and
Yeah, I mean,
it'll be in demand.
I'm hoping it's definitely a weird thing. I don't even know how I got into it. Honestly, I don't even know why I like it. I never really considered myself to have an artistic bone in my body, really. Much more of a science person, not so much a math, but language,
Mm.
science. I don't know how I got into this. My dad, it confuses my dad too. He's just like, art was always your worst subject. Why the hell do you want to be an artist? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. It totally confuses me as to why I'm just attracted to this. But it's like I'll go to bed and I'll sleep, lie down, and I'll see the different patterns that I've been working on throughout the day in my head. It's like, how did any of this get here?
Huh.
It frazzled me the first time. one day I was working on fonts. I remember the first time it happened. I was working on the little letterings, trying to get the proportions right. I go to bed or I close my eyes to pray. I'm seeing letters everywhere. I can't get them out of my head. It's a little weird.
So, do you get obsessive with any other stuff that you're doing? Is it just that one thing that you can't get out of your head, or do you find it in other areas too?
No, I'm an obsessive person. I have to. This is why I don't do drugs. Period. Like I even like stay away from alcohol for the most part because I know whatever I'll get into, it's going to be like I got to tinker with it. I got to figure it out. I got to put things together, and it's like it's nonstop. I'll take a break or something, but I'm thinking about it in the back of my mind, or I'll think about it when I'm driving. And it'll be like for anything. Like got into pizza recently, making pizza. So it's okay. What ratio is right? Am I sure I want to dial it in this way? Well, what if it proofs for longer in the refrigerator? And it's this kind of obsessive tinkering that it goes on in my subconscious mind. I can't. It's difficult for me to disengage that part of me. So usually I just have to practice exposing myself only in limited bursts to things that I don't want to overwhelm me. I don't know if it's like because I'm autistic or because I'm obsessive compulsive. I got no idea, but I just roll with it.
It's interesting. There are a lot of people who wish they were more like that because it might help them pursue things that they want to do. How do you feel about it? Does it annoy you or do you appreciate it?
Oh, you got to ride the lightning. You got to take that energy and kind of use it. Otherwise, it'll really screw with you. It's so like for me, it was so difficult to be in school. I hated it. It was awful because it's meant for people who are. No offense to my countrymen or people my age, but it's meant for people who are more not necessarily sedentary, but less abstract, less experimental. Because in science class, I would tend to do pretty well because it required a lot of tinkering and figuring out things and accounting for things. You get a control group, you have to get this accounted for. Okay, but how long is the time frame? And I did very well there. That's very simple. But for something like math, which is much more rigorous, anal, precise, everything has to be right in a row. It's like it hurts me. It hurts up here. Or if I'm around, let's say, I'm usually very quiet. If I'm around people who are very loud, I'm out. Like there's nothing I can do. It's just going to drive me crazy. So yeah, school was rough for me. Being a waiter was pretty rough for me too. Just because of the noise.
Yeah, I was going to say noise. Yeah,
noise really affects me because it sounds weird. It's an interesting look into my psychology, though. It's there was one waitress who had this tone of voice when it came to everything, and she would constantly talk. And I would go home and take a nap, and I would hear her voice in my head while I slept. And I was like, I got to let this go. I don't know where this is coming from. This is gotta. This voice has to exit my mind. And so, if you're not careful, because when I was younger, what I was been through, which is a good segue, I suppose. It's dealt with a lot of intrusive thoughts. That's sort of like the very ugly side of this. Is when you're obsessive and you're into things, you don't necessarily control the radioactivity, the kind of flashes that you get all the time. And if you're not prepared for it, it'll do serious damage. It'll do some serious damage. And not only will it do serious damage, you're going to lash out when people think, because people are going to think you're weird, and you're going to lash out more, and then that's just a downward spiral. And it's bound to happen if you're not careful. If you're not very careful. But now that I'm older,
I was going to say you mentioned your dad earlier being surprised that you're pursuing the gemstone engraving.
yes.
What do you think your dad wanted you to do?
Wanted me to go to college. He said, "You out of everybody in our family, you should be the one to go to college. I'm the only one in my entire family, including extended family, cousin, nephews, who didn't go to college." And a lot of reasons for that. When first of all, you can't make a very good decision when you're suicidal, like I was when I was 17. Very bad time to make a decision for anything, for what you want to eat, for what you want to do in the day. Never mind what you want to do for the rest of your life or what you want to major in. So glad I skipped out on that. But yeah, he wanted me to go to college, maybe pursue some sort of science or something, probably STEM. You know, a lot of conservative people, I'm sure as you noticed, have a very high predilection towards STEM. You know, they love STEM so much to the detriment of everything else, including humanities, linguistics, everything else. STEM, 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 STEM. At least it's over here anyway for a lot of conservative parents, because I guess in their mind, the cost benefit analysis is that it's like more guarantee of a job, I suppose. I'm really not sure, but maybe it's less indoctrination in their mind too. But yeah, that's probably what he wanted me to do.
Even that's changing though now, isn't it? You get plenty of woke papers even in STEM. But are
Yeah.
you thinking it was money was the main reason why he wanted you to go and study that? So that you would make more money afterwards?
Ah, it might have, because there is those studies that say that the
Yeah.
gross income you make is more cumulative, or it's higher than people who just go to high school. It might have been that. It might have just been pressure from my mom too. My mom was, she still wants me to go to college. She's still on my case of, I'm 26. I'm not going to go to 4-year university, be around a bunch of 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds. It's going to drive me crazy. And I'll be honest, school is very hard for me. I'm a very, I would say I suffer from the sin of pride, definitely. Being under someone, having to do what they say when I think that they're objectively wrong about something grinds my gears, really grinds my gears. And I can suck that up for a while and I can kind of get along with it. It was brutal when I was younger, absolutely brutal, because, you have your history teacher. You were supposed to, like, this is sophomore year, my worst year of high school, mentally anyway. Well, not really. It got worse. But this was definitely one of the breaking points, was that I had a high school teacher who we were supposed to get, it was pre-AP class, so pre-AP 1, you're supposed to get from pre-colonial American history, from pre-colonial times, Indians, blah, 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 Ice Age, blah, 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 all the way through Reconstruction. The entire year went around, right? So from September all the way to April, the AP test is coming up. We didn't even get to the Civil War. And that was because we're stranded on, slavery and racism constantly. Slavery and racism. And it's just a waste of time, man. But we have to do 5 essays on, how the blacks were packed in like sardines on the Mid-Atlantic Passage. How many times do you have to go over this material over and 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 over again? And then he brings up Roots as like an example. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Roots, are you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like that has any kind of valuable historicity to it at all. I'm not even convinced that the story was even founded on an actual story, like based on a true story. They say, okay, I'm not even so certain about that, but I'd use that as an example. And
So what did you do? Did you say something?
I did to my dad, and he told me to blow it, essentially. And I don't blame him. He was going through hell at the time too. When I was early in high school, my grandfather had a stroke, so my dad was taking care of him full time. So, and then my mom got a promotion at the same time, and then it's like, holy shit, it's you're doing this. One's going this way, the other's going this way, and I'm just stuck in the middle, dealing with the fallout of both of those decisions. Essentially, that's how it was. And plus, had to deal with all the usual stuff that you deal with growing up, being an adolescent.
So how long did that rough period last when you were in high school then? Is that, we're talking a year, 2 years? How long would you say it was really bad?
I would say my dark age definitely started 13 years old, end of 8th grade. I think 8th grade was my last good year in school. After that, it was just a decline into hell. And not people think it's like spurred on by some huge crisis. That's very rarely ever the case in my consideration or what I've seen and what I've seen other people go through. It's usually like a death by 1,000 cuts. One situation leads to another situation, leads to another situation. And then gradually the whole thing just kind of deteriorates over time because no one's working with the big picture. No one's seeing what's actually going on. So, I mean, yeah, I would say all of high school, freshman year to senior year to the end, because I didn't even do my exams. I didn't even know I was going to graduate. I was so mentally screwed up. I was in the middle of class and I couldn't do it anymore. I just left. And I had a fixation at the time that you know that I was going to find a permanent solution, which is not a solution, but it is permanent, if you know what I mean. That was what was on my mind. And you're not in the best of states when you're going through that. And faculty found out eventually. And when the faculty finds that out, you're essentially a liability. You're untouchable. They can't have you in the school because if you do anything in the school, that reflects poorly on them, and they can't have that. So they basically told me to either get a tutor, do my exams at home, or my dad could come in and chaperone me like I was a 5-year-old boy and I could go to school. And neither of those things happened. So that's kind of how it ended. I just ran out in the middle of April.
When you were going through that, was it mainly school you didn't like, or even when you were at home in your downtime, were you also feeling the same way?
It was home. It's my home life was awful. The capital A awful. I mean, I definitely relate to. I know it's easy to make fun of millennials and Zoomers, and by all means, we deserve criticism. Everyone deserves a bit of criticism, but I get it, man. If your parents aren't right up here and you got nowhere to go and you're being infantilized and they're total helicopters or atom bombs or landmines or take your pick of whatever, what do you do? Like what's the recourse? Are you going to talk to your guidance counselor at school? Are you going to run away and smoke weed? Are you going to transition? Are you going to be gay? Like there's all these different like avenues of total non-solutions that people look into, and that's just because of how eclipsed they are up here. They don't know what to do with their situation. They're kids. They can barely figure out what's going on a day-to-day basis, and now they have to deal with whatever drama is going on in the household. And there was a lot of drama going on in the household. So in my particular situation, I don't think my parents were just ever fit to be parents in a lot of ways. Not to besmirch them, not to assassinate their characters or insult them, but they really weren't cut out for the task at the time. They weren't able to kind of manage it. And people pay for those kind of decisions if you pull the trigger too early or I think too late like they did. My mom had me at when she was like 40. It was just essentially at the end of her life, and she thinks that she can just check off another box. But she was very, very cold to me, ice cold, very condescending. I remember the first time I experienced any sort of affection or warmness from a woman, and it really freaked me out because I was not used to it at all. My mother is a very cold, very calculating person, very procedural. She'll chart things out. She's involved in state politics. That's her big gig, and I don't know what she always wanted to do. So that's her prerogative. But like I said, there's certain fallout that people have to deal with, and sometimes it isn't the person in question.
When you were a kid and you're going through this really bad patch, beginning at age 13, ending at what age roughly?
23.
23. Okay. So a decade.
Yeah.
What's one thing that your parents could have done that in hindsight you think would have helped that they didn't do?
Take me out for, I don't know, let's say I'm 14. Take me out for ice cream or like a burger and ask me what the hell is going on. Is it, you know, a little, a little, little ask, you know? Oh, I seen that you're having an awful time. I see that you're very cloistered up, and I just wanted to ask you, is everything all right? You know, are you doing well? That's it. Nothing big.
Did you try to tell them that you weren't doing well?
In the ways that a kid can do, yeah. I mean, I would tell them about the things that would happen at school, and it was just like, oh, you know, it's the propaganda. You know, what can I do? Oh, what can I do about that? Or it was, you know, something else that was very humdrum. But a lot of my, I mean, I don't know even know what was worse, school or being home. Both were pretty bad. It's to give you an idea, because you probably need a concrete example just so you can kind of see the problem here, or the problems. You know, after I graduated high school, and I did graduate high school, which I don't know how. They just made up my exams, I guess. Maybe the teachers just had my back. I don't know. I never went back, never asked them. What inevitably happened was that I got my diploma, walked across the stage, blah, 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 blah. And had to go find my diploma one day because I had to take a photocopy of it for a job application, essentially. I'm trying to find the thing for about 3 hours. I'm going through everything, including where I put it before. It was in a tucker. Going through absolutely everything, and I can't find it. And you know, my mom gets very cross with me. Where did you put it? Where did you put that? But that was a serious item. Why did you lose that? Blah, 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 blah. I can't believe you did this. Blah, 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 blah. I find out years later from my brother, she had took my diploma from me. She had took my diploma from me because she thought that I would do something to it, light it on fire or something, piss on it. I don't know. I don't know what's going through her head. I try not to just imagine what goes through her head. And she forgot she took it and she blamed it on me for like months. I don't know how to interpret that. Is that just dumb or is that just malicious? Like and because of the nature of her job, it's just like I'm tending to think that it's more malice than anything else, right? Because she does all this political gerrymandering kind of stuff. I don't know if it's like a split personality thing. It's just like an empty box that's totally dark inside. I can't look into it. I don't know what's going on in there. And that's just one example. There are a few others too. But you know.
How old is your brother?
He's 6 years older than me, so he's 32.
And what was happening between the two of you when you were age 13 to 23? Do you talk to him much?
No. I didn't even find out he was gay until, I don't know, I was like 16 or so. That was kind of a little bit of a shock to me.
He was living at home while you were at home, yeah?
He was over at college most of the time. I live in a very small area. You know, New England is very small, so it's not very far away, but he would just never come home, essentially. And so he would stay out. But yeah, I mean, my brother, he's vicious too. I'm always the baby, essentially, of the family, so I got the most licks. It's just how that works. My family's not very warm-blooded. I wouldn't describe them as that. They're very, you know, you do one thing wrong, and it's like the wolves will descend upon you. And if you're the youngest one, there's no protection. You better either hide all your mess ups, or you better mess up in private. That's essentially what I learned from a very young age. So I kind of learned that kind of political scheming system. And it's very interesting because I later found out that my mother also was born into a very discordant household. That's probably where she picked up a lot of those kind of traits herself. But I didn't know that either until years later. And I didn't even know another thing is I didn't even know that I look just like my grandfather who abused my mom. That probably has something to do with the reason why she would be so vindictive towards me. Kind of make things up because she has made up things before and used them against me. Because when I was out of my gourd and thinking about taking a tumble off a bridge, she her refrain in this was always, "How could you do this to me? How could you be so narcissistic?" And that was the same refrain that my dad would take. It was never, "Well, hold on, what's going on?" It was always my fault. Always, even in the midst of my hysteria, it was my fault. And it took me a while to forgive them for that. But I had to, because you can't live with that hatred. It kills you. It really hurts. It really does hurt a lot. So I had to forgive them.
It's important that you did. People don't realize what holding on to that can do to someone. And if anyone watching needs to read something about that, Unbroken, about Louis Zamperini learning to forgive the guys that tortured him as a prisoner of war in World War II. He hated them. All he could think about was finding some way to go back and get revenge and kill them. And then he realized that he had to let go of this because it was going to kill him.
Yeah, you think
well done.
When you're in that kind of situation, even afterwards, you think of horrible things. You think of horrible things. And you don't really have much control over it. It's kind of just automatic in your head. And until you can kind of face that and say, what's done is done. I forgive you for what you've done. You got to go into detail, of course, because there needs to be a certain account for these things. But you got to sort of lay it off. Otherwise, it'll really hurt. Otherwise, it's like a cross on your back is like very dignified, right? It's like a dignified way to suffer. But this is that's like a garrow around your neck. It chokes the life out of you, and it distorts your mind too.
So how are things with your parents now then?
Much better. Much better. My dad especially, my mom a little bit, but much better with my dad for certain. It's they're very interesting people. It's difficult for me to get a read on them ever, because other people have very, I wouldn't say obvious emotional cadences and rhythms, but with my parents, it's very feast or famine. Manic depression, manic depression, manic depression. There's very distinct lines with them, and it's like that with me. That's kind of like why I am so obsessive about things, writing things down, and that's kind of where I get it from. So I can get that, but you live in a home with those people. Oh wow, there's just fireworks all the time. The smallest thing, it'll be fireworks. And I go back and I still see the fireworks. One thing will go wrong, and it's evidence of some catastrophe, but it usually blows over now. They've mellowed out with age. They're in their 60s now, so yeah. I think me moving out also helped. My brother still lives at home, so I think that kind of helped them understand. I don't know. I couldn't even describe like what it helped them with, but it seemed like my relationship with them just increased when I forgave them and then I moved out. Those two things have done the most to improve anything in my relation with them.
And you felt better moving out, yeah?
Totally. Yeah. Because it's my generation is just helicopter parented into oblivion. You can't grow, or if you're denied the hard way of learning, right? But you're also denied the good way of learning, which is someone showing you the right way, you just stagnate and become bitter. And you get into all these like messed up things online because you have nowhere else to go. That's the easiest thing to do. That's why I see so many people going on these Discord groups and variety of different internet communities and getting totally messed up, believing all these totally rancid lies about anything, like from one side of the spectrum to the other side of the spectrum, or any of the gender ideology stuff. I mean, take your pick. But fundamentally, where was I going with this?
We were talking about it being good that you moved out. You felt better.
Right. Helicopter parenting. That's right. Yeah, I didn't even get to use a stove until I was like 18. That's an absurdity. Like that's normal. That was normal to me in my brain when I was normal, quote unquote, when I was like 14, 15, because that's what I dealt with, But looking back, it's just like, are you kidding me? Wait, what? And the explanation given was like, this was literally the explanation that was given. I remember when I was 12 years old, I went down to make mac and cheese. This is just an example that stands out in my head. And my dad hears the pots and pans rustling in the cabinet, and he comes over to talk to me. He's like, and he takes the mac and cheese box and tells me to read the instructions out to him one by one. And it was just so condescending to me. It upset me so greatly that, I was trying to go ahead and do something, and now I have to read from an instruction manual bit by bit to him and make sure everything checks out with him, when I could just use like my fourth grade reading ability, read the back of the box and figure out how to turn the stove on. And I told him that it's just like, I'd like to figure this out on my own. He just blew up at me. And he got absolutely outraged at me. He said, like, well, how can you do that? How can you say that I'm overbearing? How can you say that I'm your back? I'm on your back. And like, he got very upset, like screaming upset about it. And when he calmed down, he explained to me that, fire is a very dangerous thing. Our 90-year-old neighbor almost turned his furnace on incorrectly. I mean, that's a reason to him that a 12-year-old can't figure out how to use a stove on his own, or a gas burner, a small gas burner. We're not talking about a huge complex apparatus, but a geriatric man not being able to turn his furnace on and almost burning himself is the reason why I have to essentially get lip and hear about it. It was totally absurd to me at the time. I didn't understand it.
Did you have any hobbies or sports teams or anything that gave you the opportunity to experience some risk and some challenge?
Debate team, yeah. That was that was the big thing for me. All the other things that I was interested in, boxing, fencing, sailing, even like badminton, my school didn't have. I don't know why. They had wrestling, tennis, golf. Look, I don't understand golf. I know it's big over there in the UK. I don't understand golf. I've worked on a golf course. Okay, it's not for me. I don't get golf. It's way too. It takes itself way too seriously for my liking. It's I can understand why people watch football. There's something gladiatorial to that. There's a gladiatorial aspect to that. I can understand why people watch, female tennis ball. There's a very obvious biological component to that. Why do people watch Tiger Woods? That's a mystery to me. Why do people watch people do that soft golf clap and that kind of sultry voice that the golf announcer has? It just seems like it's hypnosis. I don't understand it. You might as well just watch NASCAR and watch the cars just go around. It's about just as stimulating.
I reckon sometimes with golf, it's the business connections, the walk and talk, socializing, go around the course with people. Some people get into it for that. And then
Yeah,
maybe a few of them stay for similar reasons that you describe with your engraving. Maybe they really get into the exact weight and the swing, and they go and get the computer path tracking of where the ball goes, and they obsess
mm,
about every detail, and they love it for that reason. So it might just be that they've got the kind of mind that connects to it.
maybe, maybe it is mystical to me because I was part of a golf course one time. I was part of a golf club, and all these rich guys would go there because it's a very ritzy spot. Like this is like a Soviet premier gave a speech here. That's how big it was. Very big spot. And these guys, I mean, they're way past any kind of athletic prime, but holy cow, it's like you make bets. It's like the real. I worked in the locker room, so I saw it all raw. It's like the real deal. You make bets, you go out there, you do your job, make sure you don't mess up if it's a serious betting game. And they put like 5-figure betting games. It's just like, oh wow, wow, this is piss money to these people. It was kind of it was very eye opening. But yeah, I totally get that. I can see why someone would be very into that. And plus, for older guys, it definitely is competitive. They're not gonna dribble a ball. They're not going to be able to run different bases. They're not going to be able to, in most cases, unless they're like Italian or Portuguese, run across the field or something like that. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered your own question then. It's competition, dominance, same reason guys play most sports.
Yeah, yeah. The geriatric competition. That's golf.
Yeah.
I live with caddies too. Caddies are a different breed. Oh my god, they're a different breed of person. Talk about a black box. You don't know what's on their minds half the time. Wow. Sometimes living here is like the Special Olympics. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's a contest. It's just things just happen, you know. But yeah.
So tell me a bit about friends then. Seems like you're in a better place now than you were 3-4 years ago. Certainly. Have
Oh,
friends been a part of that?
very marginally. I've actually lost friends since 3 years ago or so, or 4 years ago. I've actually lost a few. Some of them moved away. Some of them moved away without telling me. That's interesting. Uh, Another one of them transitioned. No longer talks to me. And he was a close friend of mine too. Like I had known him for a while, and you know, I had informed him of my own opinion about that. I knew what he went through when he was a kid too, and I basically explained to him, listen, I know you think this is the way to solve your problems, finding a new identity, doing all these kinds of socially approved methods, but it's not going to work out. You're running from a beast into a much larger beast, essentially, is what I told him. So you're essentially your want to fit in and your want to be somebody is casting you into much more dangerous water than the water you're actually coming from. It's like from the frying pan into the fire, so to speak. And he got super upset with me, super upset with me, and we haven't spoken much since.
Do you miss him?
Yes, yeah, I do. I miss the person he used to be, especially because new name, new gender, new everything, and not for the better. Really, not for the better. Uh, it's a ersatz personality. It's totally self-generated. This is how I want to be perceived. This is how I want to do things. It's me, me, me. And when I sat down to talk to him, I was flabbergasted. I was absolutely stunned by the things he told me. Uh, I would ask him, you know that those hormones are going to sterilize you. Oh yeah, like, oh yeah, I knew that. No, no recognition that this was doing irreversible damage to his body. Oh yeah, I knew that. Yeah, that's fine. And I told him, you have awful allergies, and you already have autoimmune problems. You understand that this is going to make all of that worse. Oh yeah, yeah, I understand that. He's just totally flippant about it. I couldn't believe it. It shocked me personally. I didn't confront him about it in a big way for a while. He was been transitioning for 2 years, a year and a half maybe, and I thought maybe it was a phase because he was very given to whims. I had known this since he was very young. Very given to whims, very stubborn and given to whims, which is a bad combination. Bad combination to be stubborn and whimsical. That can be a potential death sentence if that gets out of hand, like it is in this case. Because I don't know if you know this, but like 10 years, you're on HRT, estrogen in this case, 10 years, cancer. Like right away, 70% chance, cancer. You're just going to be flippant about that? You're just going to be so off the cuff about that?
Were you angry? Were you angry at him?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I thought I knew him better. It does sting like a betrayal, really, because it's like, what was all this about? Like, were you just lying to me since birth then? Is that what you're saying now? Are you just turning your back on who you are and everything that we experienced or that we've been through together? Because this is a childhood friend. This isn't like I encountered him after high school and it was like a 2-year thing and I met him at school or it was a job or something. No, this is a childhood friend, elementary school. I had seen him constantly. And to just come out of the woodwork with this and be so blasé about it. God bless him. I wish the best for him. But I can't bear to see someone do that to themselves. That's very difficult for me, because it's the whole thing. It's the whole shebang. It's like the hair, the makeup, the everything. It's this total commitment to this ideal. That's putting it lightly. And it's tough. It really is tough for him and for me.
Had anybody else really close to you in your life gone like that before? Because it almost sounds like you're grieving him.
Yes. Yeah, I've known several people who have transitioned. This is, I wouldn't say it's common. It's common enough now where I'm from. This generation is so screwed. It's unbelievable. I've known, because someone else I was aware of since childhood or was a friend of mine up until a certain point kind of came out to me and said, listen, I'm thinking about transitioning and my therapist is on board, blah, 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 blah. I told him the same thing. I was just like, listen, this reads more like a business ledger than it does some kind of heartfelt decision of yours. This reads much more like you're going through the motions just because what? Like, because why? Like, why are you doing this? It doesn't make sense. And he's like, you're the only person, you get all defensive. You're the only person who questions me about this, and literally everything else in my life is on board, and blah, 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 blah. I was like, look, man, I'm just saying, if you got all these problems and you're so heartfelt about it, well, why are you so upset about it? Why are you so defensive? If you genuinely think it's the right thing to do, why are you so defensive? I just asked a bunch of questions to him, and he got super defensive. And he reconsidered. He reconsidered completely. He was just like, yeah, I think you're right. On a whim. Like, this was like a day later. He's just like, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think that was going to be a big mistake of mine. And I wanted to say thank you. I mean, you're told constantly that that's impossible by everybody, that if someone is this fairy inside of themselves, that they have to go through some butterfly transition and go through a chrysalis and go through hormone therapy and blah blah blah, and that's like some immutable spirit within them, but it's just a hocus pocus lie. It's just nonsense. It's really all it is. It's like it's a gaslight through another gaslight through psychology. So it's like a double lens gaslight essentially, and people fall prey to it because they don't have the defense mechanisms to appear. That's one of the reasons why I'm not a self-pitying kind of guy, because it'd be very easy for me to like, oh, woe was me, I live in a crap hole and my childhood was rough and my high school was rough. But all that really did is give me a lot of critical tools up here, psychological defense mechanisms up here, and I can kind of see things and pick things apart very well. Whereas for other people, it's like a strain. It's like very strenuous to them. But for me, it's second nature because I've been doing that since I was very small, since I was like in the single digits, essentially.
When you say you're angry at your friend who transitioned, is that because you're also angry that you couldn't stop him from doing it? Do
I
you
think
feel
so.
like you could have stopped him?
I think so. And I wasn't always the best kid to be around, too. I might have been directly up cause of that mess. Maybe if I was a better person, if I was a better when I was a kid, been nicer to him or more of a better big brother figure to him, maybe this disaster could be averted. But now it's like it's incontrovertible damage. You can't untake it. You can take testosterone for the rest of your life to mitigate some of the effect, but the damage is done. And these people that I read a lot of statistics about this. Each person who transitions and goes through the pipeline like this is 1 million easy bucks. 1 million easy bucks for pharmaceutical companies. Easy. That's the low end. They want to add surgery and all that to the transition too. Wow, that's the high end. It's just dollar signs to them. To them. But there's a real human reality here. I mean, he was a bass singer. He had a deep bassy voice. You take estrogen, gone forever. Gone forever. That beautiful bassy voice that everyone could have enjoyed, gone forever. For what? For what?
Why do you think he doesn't talk to you now?
I call him by his old name. That's why. And I think that causes some distress. And it's kind of mutual. When I had that very stressful conversation with him, it was the third hardest conversation of my life, I would say. It's in his basement at his parents' house. And as he was just going through the motions and basically flat facing everything. This is a guy on estrogen, flat facing everything like it was just, oh yeah, of course, of course I knew it would screw me up completely. Yeah, basically admitting that it was causing incontrovertible damage to his body and going on a self-love diatribe, like totally brainwashed, like I have to love myself and you have to learn to respect me for who I am, blah, 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 blah. It's just like, oh my God, I don't know who I'm even looking at right now. It seriously distressed me. I didn't even say that. I didn't articulate that out loud. I just kind of sat there like this, like holding myself back because what do you even say to that? But yeah, I said my piece, gave him a hug, told him to take care of himself, removed him on everything, on absolutely everything. And that's just because I don't want to be reminded. I really don't want that kind of gut stab to be lurking essentially every time I open up my phone or go online or go on Discord or anything like that. And I don't want that temptation to be there because I think ultimately he's very stubborn, as I've said before. It's irreconcilable. He's not going to change. And I'm not going to stop. So I think the best course of action for the both of us is just to kind of, cool it off for now. For now, who knows if there's a later?
Do you think you're too stubborn?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm very stubborn. Get the money on that, Jack. Yeah, very stubborn. I definitely wouldn't do what I would do if I was not stubborn, essentially. And I know two stubborn people bashing heads with each other. It's not a good mixture. You don't want that in a friendship, any type of companionship. It's just not really a good thing unless there's some sort of correction involved in there, in which case middle ground can be reached. But there's no middle ground on this issue. There's just not.
So 26 now. What
That's
are your
right.
what are your plans for the next few years? What's on your mind about the future?
God, I mean, plenty. Plenty on my mind. Too much on my mind. It's where I'm at. It's difficult. It's difficult now. Out of a job, a proper job, trying to earn money on my own, doing this whole engraving thing, and 26. It's like I'm just starting. That's what it feels like. It's like I'm just starting. Like I'm just starting to draw. I started like 2 years ago, but like really, really, really honing in on my abilities right now, trying to get it all metered out, proportions all correct. Because it all has to be the proper size too. You need the right size, shading, you need everything, proportions to be right. This is the extremely fine, detailed art. And a lot of days it's a lot of despair. It's a lot of despair. And it's despair over the fact that it's like, because I was not like, I wouldn't say cheated. I wasn't cheated out of time, but it's like, my God, if I could send this all in a time capsule and get this boat started just 4 years earlier, this would be so much easier. There's that old saying, it's a dumb saying. The best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. Are you familiar with that?
Mm.
And the second best time is today. Well, no, the second best time is 9 years ago, actually. If you think about it, the second best time is 9 years ago. And I hate to be anal, but this is what I do, right? Very anal. A dumb expression. No, second best time was 9 years ago, actually. Make sure to clarify people when they bring that up. Very popular, as you might imagine. But yeah, it's kind of trying to keep out of my head because I know that this is like it's a trap up here. It's a very big trap up here. You can't get caught up in here with any degree of regularity. It's kind of like there's always like a mousetrap. It's like a temptation. There's like a little bit of cheese, right? But the mousetrap doesn't leave. It's always there, and the cheese changes out from time to time. The thought may be different. The temptation might be different. You might be thinking about something else, but the trap is still there. You have to focus your eyes on the trap, not the cheese. Otherwise, you're in for some pain. You're in for a lot of pain. So I got to keep that in mind. And yeah, that's the most thing that's on my mind. Is like, oh my God, it's like the sheer gravity of I got to get this ship in motion as fast as possible. Because I've just been like, what did I do when I was 20, 21, 22? I wasn't exactly picking my nose, but I was trying to figure this stuff out. But it's like, right. So part of the reason why I quit the job was it takes 5 years in a traditional apprenticeship to reach any type of proficient ability. 5 years, full time, devotion, engraving, designing, underneath somebody too. That's a critical element. You need a master to learn from. That transmission makes it so much easier because it's from person to person, not from book to book to dude. So I really gotta move. Personally, I really gotta move, and it's not easy. I'm not someone who's um, it's hard to get going. It's like a momentum thing. It's a lot to do with inertia. You stay in one place too long, you're just gonna get moss.
I think it's important to try and be grateful for the fact that you've started on this path and you've got the opportunity to pursue it. Whatever you can be grateful for, focus on that. I think that's going to be a real benefit to you. And then, as far as possible, blame yourself for the things that you're frustrated about. I think that's psychologically healthy as well. You kind of hinted at it there. 21, 22, what were you doing? If you're angry about wasted time in the past, try and pin it on yourself if possible. I know that's difficult, and there are lots of things that weren't in your control, but to the extent that you can do that and focus on what you're grateful for now, I think it'll really help you. And also get out in your mind any sense that there are shortcuts to this, because why should there be? It's an important art, isn't it? It takes a lot of practice, skill, discipline. And what would you expect? That's the way it has to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. That definitely is the way it has to be. You're right.
How about getting this apprenticeship then, finding a master to learn from?
I fired off so many messages, Instagram, email. It's generally that the response I get is usually from like a PR or a sales agent. We're not accepting people at this time, something like to that effect. And this industry, jewelry industry in general, is a closed door. That's the way to describe it. The people are very friendly and welcoming. You will get people who want to help you out or who are interested in what you're doing 100%. But if you're looking for something traditional, if you're looking for the old school apprentice master, or if you're looking for somebody to really show you what it's about, like really show you, not just like give you one-off advice every once in a while and check your work every once in a while, that's like the holy grail. You know, that's really, really tough to find here. And I don't even know where the jobs are going, right? Because a lot of the low end labor is sucked up by immigrants. I know that. Even like in the culinary industry, even in the hospitalities, a lot of the cooks, the chefs around here, they're predominantly Mexican. You know, you get Mexicans, Guatemalans, they all work at like pizza places, like all these Mediterranean places. They're not Italians. The Italians don't work in a kitchen. But I don't know where the actual like fine detailed work is going. The actual skilled labor, there seems to just be, in general, this has to do with carpentry, plumbing, those kind of things too. A shortage of them, really. I don't even know where these people are going.
You need to stay consistent with trying to make contact with people who are already established. Don't give up. And then you need to get your work seen more, whether that means posting it online or sending it into places. When you get good and something gets noticed, I think that will be a way in for you. But yeah, no shortcuts. I can't see how any shortcuts are going to emerge with this particular line of work.
No. No such thing as a shortcut unless it's a very small cut on a plate, in which case, yes, you can do a lot of shortcuts, essentially.
Well, look, I hope you talked about what you wanted to talk about. I got a class coming up, so I got to go, but I've enjoyed listening to you. I think you're a fascinating guy and you've been through a lot, and it will help you long term. And I think help other people that you come into contact with as well. You learn some tough lessons.
Well, I really appreciate that. Honestly, I very much so appreciate that. And I think you're a very fantastic man. I think you're doing fantastic work. So I want to thank you for that too.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, Nolan. Thank you, Will.
Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the interview. Lots of great material to think about. Make sure to check out other episodes here. And if you want to share your story, email me and let's talk. If you like what I'm doing, share, subscribe, comment. Thanks for your support.